To begin, we'd like to acknowledge that this afternoon's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We're grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. This film is eligible for the Canada Goose Award for Best Canadian Feature Film, Gross People's Choice Award, Gross People's Choice Documentary Award as well. Vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. And we'd like to thank the Canadian Broadcasting Company for helping bring the film here. It is a real pleasure to introduce this filmmaker. We've had the privilege of showing a number of his films, having the world premiere of a number of his films over the years. Showstopper, his great documentary about Garth Drabinsky. Filthy Gorgeous, about Bob Guccione, which is one of my favorites, actually. This film, I think, in many ways, is probably his best. People who've seen it think it's his best film to date. And in a lot of ways, it might be his most important, especially when you consider what's going on now south of the border and in Europe. It's a very important subject. It draws on his experience with portraiture, film portraits. And as I said, I really do think it's his best film. Please join me in welcoming the filmmaker, Barry Avrich.
Thank you, Steve. I'll let Garth Drabinsky know the people applauded. We'll get to it right away because I'm excited for you to see the film. I love the fact that the theater's packed, and when we get to our Q&A, we've got Ben Ferencz who's gonna Skype in with us, so that's pretty exciting if the technical gods are with us. Just a few thank yous that you'll indulge me in. I want to thank the Toronto International Film Festival, which has been family for so long. So thank you, Steve, and Pierce Handling, and Cameron, and Michelle, and the whole team. So thank you very much. I have to thank, not because she told me, because I love her, and I have to thank her, is Robin Mirsky from Rogers, who's been my partner in making these films for so long. So thank you, Robin Mirsky. I want to thank the CBC, who is such a spectacular broadcaster and is our partner in this film here and around the world as well. So thank you, Sandra Kleinfeld and Jennifer Detman and Sally Catto and the whole team at CBC as well. I really appreciate their help. My producing partners, Patrice Theroux, Vertical Entertainment and Paradigm as well, who are helping me take the film around the world. I want to thank my team at the National Bank. I want to thank also the Holocaust Museum. We're going to be taking this film on a tour through the U.S. and a couple of their great people. Anna Cave is here, and you'll meet her later as well. My creative team on the film, it takes a lot of people to make the film, and I'm indebted to Caitlin Shetty, our producer on the film, and Sanda Fisher. My editor for, I think this is my 5th or 6th film, I don't know if she's here, but Tiffany Baudin, who is so talented, and you'll see in her skill in helping to tell Ben's story. So thank you, Tiffany. She's over there hiding. Ken Ing, my cinematographer, we've been through a lot of adventures together all over the world, and thank you, Ken, if you're here, wherever you are. And Michael Perlmutter, who does the music for my films, who's amazing, so thank you, Michael, as well. And then, the team Ferencz, the team behind Ben that are so great, his son, Don Ferencz, Sandra Schulberg, Diana Goltz, I think, who's here as well. I deeply appreciate your help. So let's get to Ben's story, and then we'll have some fun after you see it. Thank you very much.
Stick around. We'll be back with some special guests. Once again, please welcome the director, Barry Avrich.
Thank you. I want to introduce a few people to join us before we with the tech gods bring Ben up, who I think is ready to go and not in the swimming pool. But I want to introduce my producer on the film, Caitlin Shetty, did a fantastic job. Caitlin, come on on. I also want to introduce Anna Cove from the Holocaust Museum as well, doing unbelievable work. And this is a film about a hero, but there's another hero here as well. I've asked to join us, and I'm interested to get his opinion watching that footage. He is a survivor of many camps, including Auschwitz, the age of 15, Mr. Nate Leipziger. And I will turn it over to Steve.
We can. Do we have enough seats? Could you guys, Barry? Could you talk a bit about how you discovered Ben? How you came across his history, his story?
It was Sunday night last May. I was somewhere in the house, and my 13-year-old daughter and wife were watching 60 Minutes, and there was Ben being interviewed by Diane Sawyer in a short segment, and they know I love this stuff, and my daughter yelled, "Dad, you have to see this guy." And I turned it on and was just riveted, and came to the office on Monday morning and said to Caitlin, "Find Ben Ferencz," and she found him, I mean, literally in a day, and called and said, "We want to make a film about your life." And he said, "So let's do it." And it was literally 7 weeks later that we were pulling into that little house with 2 trucks filled with equipment, 7 cameras and whatnot. And he I don't think he expected any of that. He thought this was going to be another sort of 2020 60 Minutes interview. And he said, "We'll get this done." And I said, "No, I need 2 days, Ben, 8 hours a day with you. And it's multi-cameras and complex. And well, we'll do it in 1 day." I said, "There's just impossible. It's it's your entire life, 98 years. No, we'll do it." And so, we did it. I was nine hours tireless. And then I said, "Well," and he said, "Great, nice to see you." And I said, "All right, but Ben, I have to come back and film you swimming, because it's just," and he did push-ups for me and does 100 push-ups a day. And he said, "Well, let's go swimming now." And so off we went into the pool with Ben, swimming, and about, I would say, 6 months later, I brought him a rough cut in Florida in a small little theater that we rented, and we sat together. He watched the film. He wept and put his hand in my hand and said, "That's all I need." And riveting for me, and something you never hear as a filmmaker from anybody. So that was the story.
Nate, do you want to talk a bit about your response to the film and the significance of Ben's work?
Yes, as I was commented to Barry while we were watching the film, this is the most important film in the last 50 years. It is 70 years since the occurrence of the Shoah, and people are sliding back, and the world is forgetting as to what happened. And as a survivor, it pains me very much that that is happening. And I'm really grateful to Barry and his team for bringing this wonderful film to us, because it not only talks about the marvelous man and his marvelous accomplishments, but it teaches us about world history. And it is such a significant element in our future, this International Court of Justice, that very few people today actually realize the power that it has and the hope that it has to stop man's cruelty to man. Myself have been subjected to man's inhumanity to man, and I was very glad to see or to hear Ben talk about the fact that war brings out the worst in us, and that we have no guarantee on which side we will be, whether we'll be the victim or the persecutor. We have no guarantees. Because many times people ask me, "What would you do and how would you behave?" I says, "I don't know." We were the recipients of the most inhumane crimes that humanity ever saw were intelligent, educated human beings, architects and engineers, would design a building to murder human beings. For the only purpose of that building was to murder 2,000 human beings in one shot. Can anyone fathom the task that this man undertook willingly, knowingly, that they were creating a death factory against people who have committed no crime, who have no trial, and who were just completely innocent and when had to go to their death for no other reason that they were born Jewish. Being born was the crime, and your sentence was passed over you the minute you were born. That is what this film is talking about. And it must be, this film must be seen in every educational facility, because it's the most educational film that I've seen. There's no other film that is either fiction or documentary that does what this film does. And the flawless and wonderful integration of historic footage with the discussions that were in front of us is a genius, is an absolute expression of genius.
That's Tiffany. Thank you, our editor, who's hiding again there. Thank you, Nate.
I think we have somebody maybe waiting on the line, a special guest. If we could bring in Ben.
Wow. That's a standing ovation, Ben. Ben, another standing ovation.
Can you hear us, Ben?
Uh-oh. Ben, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you, but I'm so staggered by the enthusiastic reception. I'm silenced for a moment.
Do you want to talk a bit about? We're really glad you're not in the pool. Do you want to talk a bit about what the filmmaking experience was like for you, and what it is like? Have you seen the film yet?
You've hopefully you can hear me. You've seen the film, and I don't know if you want to share with the audience what it was like your first time seeing that film and seeing the photos and the footage for the first time.
Well, I want to first apologize for not being there in person. I had hoped that would be in Toronto to join you, but some of the doctors that take care of me decided I might try to save some strength for my old age. Since I'm only 99, I better not be flying around as much as I normally do. The film, of course, was a very moving film. I saw it first in a preliminary showing, which Barry was kind enough to show us. And it achieved my goal of setting forth the basic facts of the Holocaust by one of the very few survivors who not only was there when we entered the camps where the crematoria is still going, but who also captured and interrogated and brought to justice some of the leading perpetrators of the crimes against humanity which were committed against all the victims. So that it had a rather broad sweep in a subject which unfortunately is not kept sufficiently in the public eye, because if we are to change things and make them better, we have to be aware of what the past was and what it takes to make a change. So I very much welcome the opportunity of being here, even indirectly, to greet you and thank all of you.
Perhaps we can maybe take a few questions from the audience. Anyone? a comment, maybe. Way at the back. Do we have a mic to send up? Or
If not, we're going to take a question from the audience, Ben, and we'll repeat it so we can hear it.
Actually, just say it and we'll repeat it. Question was for Ben, as a prosecutor, how did you respond to the defendants possibly using the argument that they were under duress, that they were afraid for their family or afraid for their own lives?
That was a completely phony argument. First of all, there is no duress to commit a crime. Every German soldier had to carry a book of instructions, and it required them to do everything if it was legal. It prohibited illegal activity, so there was no argument that we had to do it because we were forced to do it. It's also absurd because, in fact, instead of trying to conceal the number of people they killed, their reports exaggerated the amount counted. For example, one of the Einsatzgruppen, which were the special extermination squads appointed for the sole purpose of murdering every single Jewish man, woman, and child, the head of that Einsatzgruppe, he was a Dr. Otto Ohlendorf. When asked, is it true that your unit murdered 90,000 Jews? He said, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, the men used to brag about the body counts. So it was not that they were being coerced to kill people. They were bragging about how many more they killed than they had actually killed. So that's really a phony argument, which has not stood up in any court.
Yeah, down here.
I was just curious about what it was like working at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial and how you continue to work together with the ICC and the organization.
Gentleman was curious. The gentleman asking the question was curious about what it was like to working with the U.S. Holocaust Memorial and what your continued relationship with them is.
This is a question to Ben. Yeah.
Or-
So Ben, you could talk about the Ben Ferencz initiative, and Anna, you could certainly add to that as well. There's Anna here as well, and why you chose that institution.
So the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum is a permanent institution that's supported in part, small part, by the United States. And it is, of course, a key player in the world affairs. The United States is a key player. And my feeling is that the facts of the Holocaust can best be portrayed by examples of the actual pictures and bodies and parts. I have donated my entire archive, 2 truckloads, to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, and it's on display. They have the record of the Einsatzgruppen trial, in which you can see every word which the defendants used, every bad argument that they used, all the evidence of who they killed in which towns, in which place, and who did it. All of that is indisputable. So if there is anybody left in the world who has any doubt about there having been a Holocaust and having been as horrible as it is depicted to be, the Holocaust Museum in Washington is the first stop. There are many other stops, but I hope that nobody will continue to doubt that. They should be determined instead to change it and make sure it doesn't happen again to anyone, anywhere, at any time.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say how honored I am to see you. I can't believe I'm speaking to you in person. I just wondered what you attribute your incredible compassion to. Obviously, your experiences as a young man and adult, but you appear to have had that throughout your life, starting as a child, and this deep commitment that comes out of a truly the only word I can use is a compassionate nature that seems to fuel you. And I wondered if what you that might attribute that to.
The lady is honored to be in your video presence, and she wanted to know what you attribute your compassionate nature and the deep well of compassion that's evident in the film, what you attribute that to.
It's a difficult question to answer. I'm compassionate because I'm a human being, and the compassion doesn't belong only to the people I know or are closely related to me. My compassion extends to all human beings, and we've had our Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I'm a strong believer in the rights of all human beings, regardless of their race or creed, to live in peace and human dignity. And that was, in fact, the opening statement that I made as chief prosecutor for the biggest murder trial in human history at Nuremberg. I asked myself, what shall I ask for? I have here a selection of 22 defendants out of 3,000 men who every day murdered Jews by the thousands. Where is there justice here? There is no justice. It's impossible. But if I can develop a rule of law which will protect everybody in the future, regardless of their race or creed, because they were killed because they didn't share the race and the creed of their executioners. If I could create a rule of law to protect all of them, then it would have some permanent significance. And that was my personal goal. And I'm glad to say that the judges picked it up, and it has been expanded upon, not adequately, but it's moving in the right direction over the years.
Can I just, if we have time for one more, Ben, I just want to ask you a question. Everybody asks me after making the film and spending time with you is how you remain so encouraged, given everything you've seen, the headlines that we continue to see, that president you have. How do you remain so encouraged?
There are several answers to that. First of all, I am aware of the progress. I am certainly aware of the difficulties that we have. When I began working toward the creation of an international criminal court, some very wise people, friends of mine, said, Ben, it will never happen. You're wasting your time. And I said, well, you're probably right, but I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm going to try. And I pushed. And sure enough, one day we had the International Criminal Court. And sure enough, I was chief prosecutor in the biggest murder trial. And sure enough, when we had the International Permanent Court finally set up, and they came to their first case, they asked me if I would do the closing remarks for the prosecution, as I had done when I was 27 in Nuremberg. I did make those remarks for the prosecution. I was then 92 years old. So I had seen the progress over a long period of time, also in many other ways of human rights protection, the rights of women, same-sex problems. All of these things have happened in my lifetime, and they have been enormous changes of the way what it was like before. So there's no reason to be discouraged because the world hasn't become perfect overnight. It won't become perfect enough. But it gives me the courage to continue to go on. And you need hope, and you need courage in order to have the strength to do all the things that still have to be done before we have reached a more humane world. And I hope that my example will help encourage people to move in that direction, even if it takes a few years. I'm only 99, still going strong.
I think on behalf of this audience, we hope you go on forever.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Congratulations on the film. Thanks for coming. The film screens again on Thursday, September 13th.
Thank you, Ben.
So please tell your friends.
Hey, wishing you Happy New Year.